pretty sure it's Tuesday morning. Posted the subwoofer video on Sunday morning. I didn't think I was going to be able to get it done. I kind of dogged it on Friday and took most of the day off when I really should have pushed on and finished editing the video. Got up on Saturday morning and dove in and got it finished by late Saturday afternoon. And then Sunday morning I wrote the article. Anyway, get a couple things out of the way first. People asked me what this was. I talked about the stabilizer in the last video, but I didn't show it, and I guess people wanted to see it. Here it is. People also asked about the camera. The camera I already had. I didn't buy a new camera. This is a camera I've had for probably a couple of years now, and it's the Sony RX 105 or something. 5A maybe, I don't know. I use this as my point of view camera. I was using the sports camera as the point of view camera for a long time, for many videos, but then I switched to this. This one's heavier, yes, and it's not stabilized, of course, as well, but the picture quality is so much better. And so it was easier to match up this to the stuff I did with the camera that I normally use to record stuff out here. So that's the reason for that. When you're doing this kind of stuff, some people don't, but I do. I like to improve everything, even though it might not boil down to like a tangible improvement with like when you're watching it. You might not notice it. And that's actually a good thing. When people don't notice, the quality, that means that it's not that bad. I got a comment on, I don't know which video it was, to be honest. It might have been the first one, might have been the second one, might have been the third one, might have been the final one, I can't remember. But I don't know how serious the guy was, but that's what he said. The world's most expensive table saw. And you know what? If I had to build it for someone, probably it would be quite expensive, especially when you consider what you're getting for the money. I'm not going to lie about it. This is in no way, shape, or form like does it compare to a cabinet saw made from metal. I mean, there's a world of difference between the two. Obviously, this thing's made out of wood, whereas the other one is made out of metal. Metal is vastly superior in nearly every regard for building this kind of a thing. It's obvious, yes. However, you're going to pay a lot of money for a saw that works as well as this one does, because I would judge this to be a very good saw indeed. I mean, the capacity is there, the quality is there, the accuracy. Okay, that's another thing that people seem to think comes, wrapped up in a box. Accuracy. Accuracy is not something that you buy. Well, yeah, you can buy it, but you really need to take, I can take any cheap saw, any cheap table saw, even just a circular saw screwed to a sheet of plywood, and do, really accurate cuts with that. Accuracy is not really in the tool. It's in the user. The most expensive part of this saw was the top that I used. You can use other materials though. Like the last one, the blue top one, which held up really well, was particle board that I stained and then coated with water-based polyurethane. Even if you were to leave it raw, I think it would still hold up really well. Certainly well enough to use as a table saw for, several years. And it wasn't like I was... I built that saw and I didn't do anything with it. I did a lot of projects with that, and, that worked well enough. This thing, however, works a lot better. And it takes a 10-inch blade, and it sounds good, and the top is nice and flat and straight. But like I said before, all of that is thanks to the time I took or put into it to set it up properly. And it's systematic the way you would go about doing that. I got guys buying my fence plans and saying that, the fence is accurate and all that. Yes, the fence can be built you have to build it accurately though. and you have to set it up accurately. It's the same for any fence system. I mean, the way this one operates is very good. The way that a cheaper fence operates is not very good, but you can still get good accuracy out of it. How much did the saw cost? Take away what it costs for the top. Okay, I'll include what it costs for the top because I didn't use the whole sheet. Like this is a full 4x8 sheet of this plastic that I bought, and I still have most of it left over to use for something else. Like that top that I cut out originally for the Epic table saw is still sitting there. It's still there, untouched. So if I ever decide to build that saw, which I may or may not, I still have the top to use for it. So when I add up everything that's in this, maybe $250, $300, that's it. The rest of it is time. I mean, you have to put in a lot of time to build this, especially from scratch, especially if you're designing it from scratch, that is. I mean, if you have plans for it, that would be a different thing. You can systematically cut out the parts, start putting it together. Any problems that you run into should easily be solved because that's what the plans are for. And, maybe a week's worth of work, if you put into it, you'll get this thing done. I mean, for the average woodworker. I mean, if you're really good, if you're really speedy and fast, you can get it done a lot quicker than that. What about those plans, John? When are you going to do those? Well, my intention was to give this a couple months at least, because you do a big project like this and you get burned out. It's kind of an overload because you're concentrated on it all the time. You need to step back, give it a little bit of time. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a couple of months or maybe 3, maybe 4. I don't know. Depends on how things go. And then I'll finish the plans and I'll re-edit the original 4 video. I kept all the footage, all the clips from them. So it won't be like all 4 videos packed together like I've done in the past. This will be an entirely new edit, condensed with a voiceover, maybe 15, 16, maybe 20, 25 minutes, depends. But it will cover everything from the beginning right to the end, and it'll be a fresh video. And so the video will be mainly there to market the plans, basically. Because, okay, you can release plans, but unless you've got some way to promote them, which is the video for me, then they're not going to sell that well. I mean, you need something to kick them off. Getting back for a minute about the expense of building a saw like this, the biggest one usually is the motor. And if you're at all resourceful or handy, you can get a motor, a suitable motor for a table saw like this. You have to know what to look for and where to look. I mean, something out of a washing machine or a dryer or something like that, it's not going to work. You need a proper induction motor that's strong enough to drive something like this. Like I said before, this is a 1.5 horsepower motor. Okay, 14, 15 amps, something like that. That'll get you a saw that works fine. I mean, a lot of guys get hung up on the cabinet saws, the big professional ones, need to have 3 horsepower, 5 horsepower. You don't need that if you're just doing hobby stuff. Nobody does. I mean, look at me. I mean, I used a table saw made from a skill saw for more than a year, 2 years almost, and look at the stuff that I made. I mean, if you're running a production shop, sure. You need a high quality table saw with a strong motor. It'll pay off in the end because you're not bogging down on cuts. You're actually making the cuts faster. And besides the motor, there aren't a lot of mechanical parts in here that you would have to buy. I mean, everything is basically made from plywood. I use good plywood here. I wouldn't even bother to build a saw like this unless I was using good quality plywood. And by good quality, I'm talking about Baltic birch is probably the best. Otherwise, there's good quality cabinet grade plywood that will work nearly as well. And also, if you want to be really cheap about it, you can use particle board or even MDF for the cabinet parts and the stand that I made here. Although I'm designing the plan without the stand, it'll be integral. It'll be a floor standing type cabinet like my other one. It'll be either open on the bottom or closed on the bottom. You choose. I got to be honest with you, I'm really liking the open bottom though. The dust falls on the floor, I sweep it out almost immediately after I finish cutting, and I put it in the bin. It's gone, it's out of my way. People want a better dust collection setup. That's not a problem to do with something like this. You close the cabinet all the way to the bottom. You hook up a big dust collector pipe to it. That will catch most of what comes down. I mean, you can set up all kinds. There's lots of space underneath this, in other words, to set up something proper if that's what you're looking for as far as dust collection goes. One other thing I should mention while talking about what material you should build this out of, solid wood would be off the table altogether. You want to avoid solid wood. For the major components here, I use a little bit of it. End cap on the table here is solid maple, but every other mechanical part inside there, you really want to be making it from plywood, the best quality you possibly can. This is especially true for, say, things like the trunnions and the trunnion frames. Otherwise, like if you try to make those for solid wood, they're going to swell up and they're going to lock. Or in the winter, they're going to shrink and get too loose. I mean, there's some people that say that, climate control and all that. Yeah, climate control will take you so far, but what happens if, your AC goes out for a couple of days, things swell up and possibly break something, or at the minimum, you can't use the saw during that time.
Thanks for coming. I'm Agent Miller. This is Agent Jones. Can we get you a cup of coffee?
No.
How about one of those cappuccinos? Just got a new espresso machine, probably cost the taxpayers 30 grand.
Well, no, I'm fine.
Get him a cappuccino.